What's up, nerds? Welcome to the first ever episode of Nerdy Talk, a series where I chat with my fellow nerds about things that bring us light in life in this Star Wars fandom. Today, I'm talking about books, okay? I don't know about you, but I have had an obsession with the High Republic books, okay? I started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I haven't stopped since. I'm obsessed. I look forward to every new release. I even have started getting into the comics, and it's great. I'm so stoked about it because I get to have a chat with one of my buddies, Jason. You may know him online on social media as thisdadreads. Anyways, he's got an amazing library. You should see his collection. You will in this video. But I'm so stoked to show you this little interview I had with him where we discuss, books. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Thanks so much for joining me today, Jason, on a little bit of a nerdy chat, nerdy talk. It was really cool to meet you in person that one time in San Diego Comic-Con. And I'm just trying to think, did we get in contact through Instagram? Or is it TikTok? I saw all the books that you were doing and reading, and that's kind of what pulled me in, I guess you could say. Do you remember what it was? Something like that.
I don't. I don't remember. It was probably a combination of the things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it was TikTok. I feel like I've been kind of dipping my toes into that more this last year. So maybe that's where we first connected. I honestly don't remember.
Either way, I'm glad
One of those.
Happened.
For sure.
And it was super epic meeting up with you there. And hopefully it's not the last, right?
Yeah, for sure. That was my second time being at San Diego Comic-Con. And I know you guys had your own journey getting there. So I know it was a wild day for you. But yeah, that was super fun. Thank you for carving some time out to come find me. I was stuck at my shift at my booth. So I guess I was a little bit easier to find than just I wasn't wandering around.
It made it way easy. I mean, that was my first time navigating some of those alleys, I guess. I don't know what you called them, the lines and kind of sections of the floor that you're
it's wild.
Divvied up to. It's crazy. I was like, okay, 4,700 and whatever booth. This is him.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes. And I think it was later in the day where I remembered. I'm like, oh, if you look up, they have ding or hanging signs that say the numbers. I'm like, oh, I'm here looking down and looking at my phone. But I'm like, if you look up, they make it.
Yeah.
Anyway, nobody tells you how to do it before you go. You just gotta figure it out.
You gotta figure it out. But the next time it's easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. and it's funny because I don't know if you do this, but for me, I kind of have identifiers for my friends and mutuals on social medias and everything like that. And some people are like, oh, that's the prop maker, or that guy has the sick Captain Rex cosplay. But for me, Jason, you're the book guru. And that's what I kind of have you as in my head. I don't know if you've done that to other people, other creators or things like that. But to me, you're the book guru. And I kind of look to you and some of the stuff you're doing as my measurement on what books I need to kind of dive into.
Well, that first of all is a huge compliment. Thank you. As you can see, I'm in front of my bookshelves with tons of books behind me. So it's very on brand.
It's so impressive, honestly. What a library.
Well, yeah, I know. Thank you. It's a mixed it's definitely mixed. You can't see all my shelves. I don't have just books on my shelves, but I've been my handle is This Dad Reads. So I gotta kind of stay on brand with those kind of things. But that's really what books and reading have always been something super just close to my heart and something I've always loved since I was a kid. And so it was kind of just this cool convergence of hobbies, I guess. And I jumping into the whole Star Wars part has been super cool as well. So that makes me happy. I it's always my goal too to I don't want to stress people out with how much I read, and I don't want people to feel like they're behind, or because I'm a fast reader and I read a lot, and it's not my job, but I kind of read books for as a side hustle. And so I don't want people to ever feel anything that I do makes them feel left out, or I just want people to be excited as I am, because books especially Star Wars books, and they excite me. So I guess that's all I do is share that. And if I can do that in any little way and quote unquote influence someone. Like I just
Right,
want
right.
to have friends to talk about the books that I love with. That's really what it is.
Honestly, I'd be so down to do a book club with you if you ever did one. Like if you were running that, I'm all in. I'm all in. I want Jason to lead my book club. Like that would be so epic.
Yeah, I'd
And
be down.
I honestly, yeah, you do seem to kind of plow through books, and honestly, that's super impressive. Because for me, I'm one of those people that might have gotten intimidated because
Mm,
I don't read super fast. I'm more of the audiobook kind of person. But
okay, yeah,
now I've got some like actual books that I've been opening and reading, and
love it, love it.
it's nice. My mind sometimes doesn't like to stick to the same line. Like my eyes are going along the words, but I'm like, I didn't even recognize anything I just read. But my eyes are following the lines.
Yeah,
It just anything like that.
that definitely happens. And entering into fatherhood will be a whole new world of trying to figure out how to find the energy to not just read, but probably
Yeah.
do the things that you want to do and carve out time for things. So
Hmm.
you'll find your way. But I know everybody is different, and that's part of the cool thing too about reading and books. It's really just stories, right? Storytelling. Like
Yeah.
obviously I love visual media too, like shows and movies, but there's just something about books and how they immerse you into worlds, and you can really get into characters' heads, and just the especially in like authors who just have a way with words can just really immerse you in a really totally different way. But I totally get what you're saying, because whether it's I'm my tiredness level, or maybe it's a book I'm not super into, if I'm glazing over
Hmm.
something's off. So like it's either me or it's the book. So I've really learned.
You're too tired that day or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or the
Yeah.
only time I have is at night. So it's like, oh, I'm
Hmm.
gonna lay down and read this book. Oh, nope, I fell asleep. Like so
Honestly,
it's
that's
rough.
I got to learn some of your secrets as to how you fit time. I guess it's just time management, fitting
Yeah,
time in for books
it's
and
really what it
prioritizing.
is. Yeah, you
Yeah.
you find times for the time, you make time for the things that you like love and prioritize. So
Right.
if everybody has, I have the same amount of hours as everybody else, so I'm just
Hmm.
obsessed. I get obsessive too about, like, I was just literally trying to finish. I just got into Brandon Sanderson recently, and he's like a
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so I'm reading the second book ever of his, and I was making dinner for the family, and I like literally was just like reading it while I'm like making tacos, because I just wanted to find out what happened next, and like trying to like every spare second I have, just because I'm so like into the book.
Uh-huh.
I finished it literally like 10 minutes before we started recording, so I'm so stoked. But anyways,
That's cool.
it's just weird. I just get like obsessive, especially with the story that I really want to know what happens.
No, I feel that way too, except for me, it's the audiobooks. I'm like doing this while I'm doing dishes or driving or
Yeah,
working, like everything like that. I just multitask more like that. But do
yeah, for
you,
sure.
as far as your kind of journey and like to books, like obviously you didn't just start day one with that massive library, which could rival the Jedi Archives, by the way. Like you probably didn't start out with that. So kind of some of your initial books that kind of introduced you to this whole like love for literature, love for
Mhm.
books. Do you remember some of your first stories?
Oh, definitely. I I remember being like a kid, and I don't remember where I got them or how, but Boxcar Children was like a big thing for me when I was little, like those little mystery stories. And I remember I have a very core memory of one day, it was probably just a Saturday or something, where I finished a Boxcar Children book in
Hmm.
one day. Like I all I did was read, and I felt so accomplished that like I finished a whole book like in one day. Um but I was always weird. Like I've always been a nerd in that sense, I
Hmm.
feel. And so but then I was always like wanting to read like above my age range. So I think also I was also kind of like um I don't know how to say this, but like an advanced reader, I would say, for my age. And so like, and
Okay.
I don't know if my mom just kind of like helped me with that, or I was always like the teacher was always giving me like extra stuff to do. And so I
Hmm.
don't know if it was like something just innate, or like I knew that I loved doing it and I had like a talent for it or whatever. But I remember being probably like 8 or 9 or 10 and wanting to read like John Grisham books. Like to me, those were like epic. And I think my dad had one. And so I don't know. I just always had a love for books, and it wasn't really the collecting thing necessarily when I was young, but I do
Hmm.
have a number of books that I had from when I was a kid that I still have now. It was
That's
really,
cool.
yeah, it was really more in like high school, in like English classes and stuff, where like you had to read books like for for class. When I really like Catcher in the Rye was a huge book for me.
Mm,
In that I was just like, whoa, like I love this. And I was actually an English major like in college, so like huge like book
cool.
nerd in
Yeah.
general. So that's, I mean, from the collecting side of things, I've always been a collector. Um, but I feel like it wasn't really until adulthood, and especially probably in the past 5 years or so, where especially when it comes to Star Wars stuff, um, that I've really honed in on some of the Star Wars collectible part of it. And that's what gets me with books is like the collectible aspect, and then also like obviously the reading aspect. So it's a double
Yeah.
it's a double
It's
whammy for
it's
me.
a win-win.
Yeah,
They
exactly. Yeah,
look
let's
good
go
on
with
your
that.
shelf. Yeah.
Let's go
They
with
look good
that.
on your
Yeah,
shelf, and they're great to dive into.
exactly.
That's so awesome. For me, it's kind of a similar thing. I actually was not a big reader. I remember going into middle school and I got like I don't even know. Like I got enough stars in my, doing good jobs that I was able to pick a book from like the treasure chest. And I remember
Oh,
picking like the third book of the Percy Jackson series and
okay.
starting to read that. And then I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this. Maybe I should start from the beginning. And so I got through all of that. And then in high school, I was like, huh, I haven't read Harry Potter yet. And so like in a month, I read all of the 7 books. And
Oh, that's awesome.
don't know how I did that, but
In 1 month?
in a month, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember sitting by the pool reading. I remember sitting everywhere and just taking them with me everywhere because I was
Yeah.
like, I love this. It's not even Star Wars. I still have those books too.
Oh
But
yeah.
that's so cool that you've been kind of doing this almost like a whole part of your life. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Like you've got so much I guess experience in reading and knowledge. And I guess do you feel like all this reading has impacted, I mean, obviously you majored in English as well, but do you feel like it's impacted your ability to communicate and kind of your thought process and those things about your own personal life? Has books influenced you in those aspects?
That's a good question. Yeah, I definitely think so. Like would say it's probably made me, I don't know, like a lot more empathetic and like open-minded and tolerant, maybe. Just because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like books really open you up to just so many different perspectives and worldviews. And even if you're reading fantasy or something,
Mm-hmm.
it just opens your mind in a different way. And it's definitely influenced, especially the way that I parent and like the way that I raise my kids. And like I want my kids to be curious and to
Mm-hmm.
like seek out that joy. And it's more of like an experiential thing, I guess. Like I don't know if it's like chasing after this high of like that feeling of like reading a really good book. Like you said, you read for all the Harry Potter books in 1 month. Like that's like I feel like that's so unique in books. And there's just something, it's like some sort of weird magic science that I don't understand, that like some divine thing that like we're drawn to stories in this way, and just to absorbing and listening to stories in this manner. So yeah, I would also say too, like professionally today, I'm like in marketing. And so
Mm-hmm.
being like, I write. So like, I feel like I'm a pretty
Oh,
good writer, and like,
nice.
I actually really like editing. So like, I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like I was always a good speller too. So I feel like in a lot of different ways, it like helped. I think it just kind of guided me towards my natural giftings. Like I probably would have found those things eventually, but like
Uh-huh.
maybe I wouldn't have known how skilled I was in English or in literature if I hadn't been as avid as a reader as I was when I was younger. Um, I will say too, like you saying the Harry Potter thing, like Harry Potter came out when I was in high school. Like it wasn't done. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember hearing about it like in pop culture, like, oh, there's this series. And I checked out the first book, I think, from my high school library, and I was like, oh, I liked
Right.
it. And then I was like reading them live as they were like coming out. So that was a really cool experience. Like I never went to any midnight things or anything like that. But then also I remember when I was in college was when the Lord of the Rings movies were going to come out, and I was like, ooh,
Oh, cool.
that intrigues
Yeah.
me, because I'd never
Those
read
are
Lord of the Rings. I didn't
dense
I was
books.
Yeah, I wasn't raised on The Hobbit or anything. So my now brother-in-law at the time was like, "Oh, they're awesome!" Like, and I really want to see the movies. So
Yeah.
in college, I read Lord of the Rings for the first time. So like, there's been some very marked like times in my life where it's like, this is my Harry Potter era. This was like the Lord of the Rings era. Like, there was definitely a period too when I was probably just working full time before I had kids, when I wasn't reading as much.
Yeah.
But that it usually goes in waves. So, but now I'm pretty much always reading.
That's cool. And you found a rhythm, it sounds like, where
Yeah,
at this point in your life you found like a good book reading rhythm, and you
for
keep picking
sure.
it up. That's really cool. I was gonna ask you, you kind of hinted at it, but like you talked about how you want, as a parent, you want your kids to be curious and kind of dive into these worlds and have that passion.
Mm,
I was gonna ask you a little bit about that. If you feel like, I don't know, if not necessarily specifically Star Wars, but if Star Wars, that's awesome. But if reading and these books has influenced the way you parent and the way
mm,
you want your kids to live, because we've got so many stories, and obviously there's so many experiences and familiar relationships that we read about, right? And
mm-hmm,
so you kind of get some like things that you'd like to have your family achieve, and
mm.
maybe you learn how to be a parent from a certain, so maybe Stellan Gios taught you how to be a dad, or like, I don't know. I was wondering if those books are have influenced your parenting.
I don't. I mean, probably not in the way. Probably not specifically in the way that you're asking that question, but I
Hmm.
hear what you're saying. I will say
Okay.
that like I feel like it's more aspirational. Like when you're reading these hero stories or seeing a character who is noble or like making noble choices, like that definitely it just more is more of a reminder that like as a parent, like you're always being watched, like, and you never
Yeah.
have a down moment, right? Like unless they're in bed, they don't know. I can't influence them while they're sleeping. I mean, I
Yeah,
could try. I don't know,
you really
but
probably can't.
yeah, it's more just that like I feel like I feel more that weight of responsibility, and when I see
Mhm.
like a character who does the right thing, or like yeah, the Stellan Gioses of the world, or I honestly see when even in like the YA books with like um Reith Silas or someone like that who you see
Yeah.
them like growing and learning, I'm like, oh, okay, good. Like I want to impact or in influence someone who will like learn and like be have that curiosity and find their own path. Like I just want to guide them, I guess. I guess that's the best way I can answer that question is like it just inspires me to try to be the best guide I can because I can't
Hmm.
force you can't force anyone to do anything. Like you can only
Right.
influence your own self. Like so you could be the best parent in the world, but you really don't know what's going to happen with your kid. Like it's so terrifying. Like it's the scariest thing ever. So like I guess I just feel that weight of responsibility and feel like okay, like I don't want to say inspired by these fictional characters, but it's inspirational to see that like it can be possible even in these fictional ways.
Yeah.
And it makes you think like they're choosing good and choosing right ultimately is something that you can aspire to.
I love that. Well, I hope that I could be as good as a parent with that as you are. That's awesome.
Oh
We're
man,
gonna,
I mean, I
we're gonna
can't.
find out
I
soon.
nobody knows what they're doing. Like nobody
Right?
knows what they're doing. So if you can look at just Dylan Geos and like try to be as good as him, like you're doing pretty good.
That's a good ballpark.
There you go. Yeah,
Good measure
yeah,
marker. That's
exactly.
awesome. But diving into some of those, some characters and stuff like that. Well, before that, honestly, I really do appreciate all those points and comments. Like it's such a cool thing to have that passion and that kind of understanding of what means the most to you, to your kids, to to your life and that culture that you're trying to create in your little
Yeah,
house, right?
yeah.
It's such a cool thing to I don't know. It's almost like it's your own book, your own story, your own life story. I
Yeah,
mean, since you write, maybe this is something. Maybe one day you're gonna write a book about this, about your
that's
little life story. But
that's a really good way to put it. Like you said it even better than I could. Like you have a chance to like write your own story and like you can be inspired and influenced by those worlds that you live in and engage with all the time. It just makes you think too, like being a parent reminds you of your own childhood so much. And I feel
mhm,
like since I've had kids, my oldest is 10. So it's been, 10 years of my life now. It really makes you realize how like fleeting time is. And
right,
like it makes you kind of think back like, wow, I wish I would have appreciated this more when I was younger or like just
uh-huh,
appreciated being young in general. Like, and so I feel like part
right,
of my goal is to like show them have them just really experience that like innocent joy and like have them experience the beautiful parts of the world that at some
hmm,
day those things are going to be the truth and the hard realities of life are going to come crashing down. And so I feel like it's part of my responsibility not to like shelter them but to like help them know that like if you can learn these things at a young age, like learning how to enjoy books or to engage with stories, that's something that you can take with you into your entire life, no matter
Right.
where like you go, and no matter what your path, no matter where your path leads you.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that that's always top of mind for me too. Like just
I
enjoy
love
being a
that.
kid and enjoy being
Yeah.
young, and like take some things with you, hopefully, as you grow, you know?
Yeah. And I like that point too, because it kind of makes me think of how, as if a kid can really truly understand a book and be able to actively participate in reading a book and get through it, it honestly probably helps their attention span,
Yeah.
their learning retention, and concepts and stuff like that. Because I feel like nowadays our attention is so short. We have
Yeah.
such short attention spans with all the media that we're constantly consuming, like that short form,
Yeah.
rapid content that we're constantly being fed in the consumer side of things. That stories, I think the reason that stories resonate with us so much and that we're able to really like be attracted to it is because I don't know, it's more meaningful than just that quick form content. It's
Yeah.
more deep and it triggers something in our soul almost, I feel like.
Yeah.
And
For
so
sure.
for your kids to really dive into a book
Yeah.
would help them in the long run, for
For
sure.
sure. Yeah,
So
and I love it.
yeah,
My kids do love
yeah.
reading. Like I'm so happy. Like they're both they're always reading, and my kid will always be like, I mean, and they're into their own things too, right? So like
Hmm.
I obviously want them, or have encouraged them to read some books that I like. Like my son loved Harry Potter, like he got into it. But like he loves Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and like there's all these series out now that I didn't read those when I was young. But he's
Yeah.
always like, "Hey, this one part," he's always telling me all the parts that happen that are so funny, and I'm like, that's awesome." And like, yeah, he loves it all. So it's
How do they feel about how do you feel about comics and stuff like that? Because when you said Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I immediately
Mhm.
thought of also, oh, what about Captain Underpants?
Oh, he loves Captain Underpants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big. Like to me, reading is like comics count. Comics are books. Like graphic novels are books. So like I grew
Uh-huh.
up reading comics too. So
Hmm.
I've also like I'm a weird art person. Like I was always a drawer when I was young. So I loved just the way that stories just totally tell themselves in a different way in comics. And so I love that. And I know some schools it's weird their comics aren't considered books, but I know like I think that's changing. I've heard a lot of the education system saying like no, these are still books, like just because they're reading graphic novels, like it's the same thing. So I love that. I think it's great. I encourage it.
I think so too. I mean, I've resisted comics for the longest time until the High Republic, and I'm like, well,
Okay.
I want to like understand some more backstory before I get into these next few books. So like the
Mm-hmm.
comics like are those bridges for
Mm-hmm.
me in that sense.
Yeah.
So
And some
like
of my
yeah,
favorite Star Wars stories are in comics, like, and there's nothing else like it. Like having the
yeah,
visual with it, and
yeah.
it's so cool. Yeah.
And it almost makes it easier when you're like reading like a follow-up book afterwards, after that
Yeah.
timeline, and then you can like imagine the character
Exactly.
from the book, from the comic, as
Yes.
you know, in the book. So I think that plays. I
Oh,
don't.
for
I
sure.
anyone that is debating on getting into comics, just do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just go in, just do
Yeah, I
it,
feel like we're living in such a cool time where it's like nothing like is too nerdy for anyone to try. I feel like
right?
especially for books are having a huge they're like blowing up right now, and I feel like
Yeah.
for a time it was like not cool to read, but I feel like it's just kind of I love that culture is basically like nerd culture. Nerd culture is pop culture now, which makes me like so happy because shows like having show like Rings of
Yeah.
Power or Game of Thrones,
Uh-huh.
like that stuff is like to me it blows my mind that it exists, and I'm just like happy that
Yeah.
we live in a world where we get content like that. Like that's not I don't take that lightly at all.
I don't either. And it makes me wonder, like, is the nerd of like our younger generation, like our youth, how it's like not common to be a nerd, is that going to be like what the jock life is like today? Like, are jocks going to be the new nerds?
We
Is
can
that
only
how,
hope.
is that what it's going to be like? I don't know. You never, these are the questions that keep me up
That's
at night.
funny. I don't know. I think that I think jocks in sports will always trump everything else.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to use that word in that way. Sorry, we can re-say that.
Uh,
Um, jocks might always be always the cool kids no matter what. I don't know.
that's, yeah, they probably would be.
I don't know.
Um, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Since you have experienced so many books and you've just engaged with so many authors, and did you get a chance to meet like Tessa Gratton and stuff like that at the Comic Con? Or who
Yes.
was it? You were talking to somebody.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to interview a number of authors on my podcast, which is really cool. I've had a chance to meet a couple of them in person over the years. But yes, I saw Tessa Gratton at Comic-Con. She signed my book. That was the first time. No, and I saw some of them. I was at the Acolyte premiere earlier this year, so a number of them were there, and I touched base with them, which was really cool. I met Lydia King for the first time in
That'd be
person.
so cool. Wow.
She's so sweet. She's so nice. But yeah, there's and the Star Wars High Republic authors just they hold like a special place. I feel like in the whole fandom's heart, like they're I think they're just such a special group, and the work that they've done and produced to just give us these epic stories that are so interconnected and so beloved. I think we're like not just the fandom, but Star Wars is so lucky to have them. Like they're just really nice people, and every time I've talked to them, I just feel like they are just like they're just normal people like us. Like, and that's why I love authors, because I feel like they're kind of a different breed of like celebrity, if you will. Like I could care less if I met like the stars of the Acolyte TV show. Like I just wanted to like go and talk to the authors. Like
I feel like we don't experience that kind of connection between authors in a story like in other fandoms or other book series. Like usually it's just one author, but the fact that the High Republic authors have collaborated with each other in such a way that the story is basically cohesive, and honestly it is cohesive, not even basically, it is. I just feel like that's such a cool thing. But even then, do you feel like you've noticed like different writing styles among the High Republic authors?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think, I feel like Daniel Jose Older in particular really thrives in like telling these youthful kind of comic book stories. And that's not to say every single Star Wars book, High Republic book, like are my absolute favorite. So I do feel like there's just things ebb and flow and different things for different tastes. But yes, I do feel like, Claudia definitely has a handle on like the YA side of things. Justina like kind of has her hands on in a lot of different things, written some of the middle grade books. So it's really cool. I will say that George Mann though has done everything. Like George Mann is the only one out of all of them.
He can do it all.
Literally touched everything. Like he has written kids books, audio dramas, adult books, YA, middle grade, comic. He's literally done everything. So I told George when I've talked to him a couple of times, I said, you need like a special award, because like you've literally, out of all the things that you could have written, I think the only thing maybe he hasn't done is a manga. So maybe I'm wrong, but like he has literally like the checklist of things that he's written are it's all over the place. It's awesome. But yeah, I would say in general though, like even when they hand off characters like in between books, they're all handled really like it's all done really well. And I know that's because they collaborate so much. I know that they're always talking and taking all those things into consideration. So it just feels nice. It feels nice to feel like you have like I don't want to say, it feels safe. Like it feels like you're going to be taken care of, even though you don't know what's going to happen, even though your favorite characters might not survive, but like they are doing their very best to like take such care with this initiative. It just feels nice to have that. It just feels nice to be taken care of in that way, I guess.
Right. It's just, you kind of feel secure. Like you trust the story. You trust it. You trust it.
Yeah, exactly. I told Kevin Scott that one time when I was chatting with him. He's like, wait, you feel safe? Like, what are you saying? I'm like, I'm not saying Kevin Scott's going to rip your heart out like in anything he writes. But I was like, what I'm trying to say is like, you guys are taking care of us. Like it feels safe in that way.
You feel comfort in knowing that they're at the reins. They've got it under control. That's so cool. I love that. We've got a couple minutes left on my little Zoom meeting. It says 7 minutes down, but I do want to ask one last thing. Is what's next? What's your next book? What are you gonna do now? You read one, you finished one right before this interview. So what's next for you?
Oh man, I already want to jump into the next Mistborn book. It's the first Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I believe it's called The Hero of Ages. I'm probably going to start it tonight because I want to keep going. Like I don't even want to stop with this world.
I love that.
We've got some more Star Wars coming this year. We do have the audio drama Tempest Breaker by Kevin Scott, which is coming out in December. So I'm excited about that. Outside of that, I'm just really in my Brandon Sanderson era right now. Like that's all I want to read. So
respect.
Yeah, thank you. yeah, I'm like a little bit obsessive about it right now. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
that's what's next for me. What are you reading right now?
Man, I still have to finish Tears of the Nameless. I'm like a fourth of the way through it.
Okay.
I was reading it on the plane. I was going to a creator trip this last weekend, but I was like, I got to make time to read this because
It's a
I'm loving it
it's a
so
good
far.
one.
Yeah. So after that, obviously, I'll just kind of twiddle my thumbs until the next High Republic thing comes out.
There you go. There we
Um,
go.
and then maybe I'll dive into some of the stuff you've got going on. I've got some Legends books, but yeah, that's my little time frame right now as far as
Okay,
books
good.
go.
Nice, nice. I've always got a recommendation, so and
Oh,
if you I'm always up for a buddy read too. Like book clubs are hard because like
mhm.
organizing people, making them do. I've done them in the past. I've done like Red Rising. I need to get you on Red Rising. That's one of my favorite series. But
Okay.
buddy reads are to me a little bit easier because it's just one on one.
Right.
So I mean,
Let's
we can let other
totally get
people
that.
join. We can let other people
It
join, but
we can save some room, but I would totally be down for that. So I'll have to figure out how to read faster. I'll have to practice
no,
so
no,
I
no.
can keep up with you.
It's okay. It's okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having a moment to spare to chat with me about nerdy books and just the awesome impact that books can have in our lives and you especially as the like I said before the guru of books, the book guru. Um, so you've been awesome to follow along with, and I'm so glad that we have become acquainted. And yeah, I'm so down to do a buddy read. That'd be great.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm really embarrassed because before I even had this discussion, this little chat with Jason, I totally spaced that he has a podcast. And I usually just listen to audiobooks, but since I ran out of audiobooks to listen to, I tried one of his episodes. And let me tell you, This Dad Reads, it's got some great episodes. There was one where he's interviewing and talking with one of the authors of The High Republic, with Tessa Gratton, who wrote Temptation of the Force, and I eat that up. That was so fun to listen to, and I can't wait for the next few episodes. So go ahead and check him out wherever you get your podcasts. And Jason, thanks so much for joining me. That was great. And yeah, I promise that I'm gonna finish Tears of the Nameless so that we can do a buddy read on the next one. Okay? I gotta get done with this. Thanks again for joining the first ever episode of Nerdy Talk. Make sure you subscribe, like the post, all that fun stuff, and stay tuned for the next time. Have a great day, and may the force be with you.